The 10 nations prophecy. Are they emerging today? For centuries, Bible scholars have watched and waited for the rise of the 10 nations prophesied in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. Could it be that we are living in the very days where this ancient prophecy is finally coming to pass? But this isn't just speculation. What if I told you we can trace this movement step by step all the way to today? What if I told you that global alliances, secret meetings, and major shifts in world power could be setting the stage for the emergence of these 10 kings? But what if I also told you that this isn't a conspiracy? It's happening right in front of our eyes. What if we're already too late to stop it? And if we are, you'll soon see how each event fits together like pieces of a puzzle with a terrifying final image. In this video, we are going to uncover the truth about the 10 nations prophecy, explore the evidence, and ask the ultimate question: are we on the verge of seeing prophecy fulfilled before our eyes? And if we are, then how much time do we have left before it's too late? Because once the final pieces are in place, there will be no turning back. Daniel 7 verse 7 says, "And behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and it had 10 horns." The warning signs are already here, and what comes next will change everything. What did Daniel see? And how does this connect to the final world empire described in Revelation? You won't believe what we're about to reveal. Once you see the connection, you'll never look at current world events the same way again. And once you do, you might wish you hadn't. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast, raging sea. The winds howl, the waves crash, and suddenly, out of the depths, something monstrous appears. Not just one beast, but 4, each more terrifying than the last. What Daniel saw that night wasn't just a nightmare. It was a divine revelation of the future. This vision, found in Daniel 7, has baffled scholars for centuries. But today, we are closer than ever to seeing its fulfillment. And if we're right about this, the implications are terrifying. Because if this prophecy is unfolding now, what happens next could shake the world to its core. The first beast, a lion with eagle's wings. Most scholars agree that this represents Babylon, a mighty empire that ruled with strength but later became weak. But what if I told you that remnants of this empire still exist today, in ways few people have even considered? The second beast, a bear, raised up on one side, Medo-Persia, a dual empire, with one side stronger than the other, devouring its enemies. The third beast, a leopard with 4 heads and wings. This is the Greek Empire, led by Alexander the Great, who conquered the world at lightning speed. But after his death, his empire was divided into 4 parts. And then came the fourth beast. This is where things take a turn for the worst, because this beast isn't just another empire, it's something far more dangerous. But what if its return is already underway? This one wasn't like the others. It wasn't an animal that could be easily named. It was something far worse. Daniel describes it as dreadful, terrifying, and extremely strong. This beast had iron teeth that crushed everything in its path. It devoured whole nations. It trampled over the world. This, my friends, is the Roman Empire. The Romans ruled with an iron fist. Their military was unmatched, their influence vast. But here's the key. Daniel saw something else about this beast, something unnatural. This beast had 10 horns, and what he saw may be forming right now, at this very moment. If so, the countdown has already begun. And we may be further along than we realize. And in Daniel 7 verse 24, the meaning is revealed. The 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom. So, what does this mean? Here's where it gets interesting. These 10 kings aren't just historical rulers. The prophecy suggests that in the last days, a final version of the Roman Empire will emerge, and at its core, 10 leaders, 10 rulers, 10 nations. Could it be that these 10 kings are rising right now? And if so, what happens next? Because if this system is established, there will be no escape. The Bible doesn't just mention the 10 kings once. We see them again in the book of Revelation, a book filled with visions of the final days. And what we find there? It connects directly to Daniel's prophecy. Let's read it together. Revelation 17, verse 12 to 13. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. John, the writer of Revelation, was given a vision of the final world empire. And just like Daniel, he saw the 10 kings. But here's where things take a darker turn. These 10 rulers don't just govern, they give their power away. And when they do, the world as we know it will never be the same again. And by the time most people realize it, it will be far too late. Who is this beast? And is he already among us? And what does it mean that they will reign for 1 hour? The answer to that question may be the most disturbing part of this entire prophecy, because it suggests that the final phase is closer than we ever imagined. The phrase, for 1 hour, doesn't necessarily mean 60 minutes. In prophetic language, it means a short, intense period of time, a flash of power, a moment in history that will shape the fate of the world. This confirms what Daniel saw. These 10 rulers rise together, but their reign is brief. Why? Because their purpose is to prepare the way for the Antichrist. But how will they do it? And what role do modern world leaders play in this plan? The scariest part? We may already be seeing the first steps. For years, scholars and theologians have debated, who are these 10 kings? What if we've been looking in the wrong places all along? Are they political leaders, economic powers, a secret elite group working behind the scenes? Let's dig deeper and see how this prophecy might be unfolding right now. Here's where things take a chilling turn. The Bible tells us that these kings won't keep their power. They will surrender it to the beast. In other words, they willingly give up their authority. They don't fight for control. They submit. This raises a terrifying question. Who could possibly unite world leaders in such a way? Who is powerful enough to convince 10 rulers to surrender their authority? And more importantly, what is waiting on the other side of that surrender? Who could command loyalty on a global scale? And more importantly, have they already taken the stage? Could we already be seeing the rise of this mysterious leader? And if so, how much longer until he takes full control? We are living in times of unprecedented change. Never before have nations, economies, and governments been so interconnected. Which means the window for preparation is closing. The signs are lining up, the alliances are forming, the world is preparing for something massive. And the pieces are moving into place faster than anyone expected, which means the window for preparation is closing. And as prophecy warns us, once the 10 kings rise, the end game begins. So the question remains, are we already witnessing the rise of the 10 kings? And if so, how much time do we really have left? Because once power is consolidated, freedom disappears. For decades, Bible scholars have debated who these 10 kings will be and where they will come from. Some dismissed it as symbolism. But today, we're witnessing something that cannot be ignored: a restructuring of global power, the likes of which we've never seen before. The question is not if the 10 nations will emerge, it's whether they're already taking shape right now. And if they are, the next phase of prophecy will unfold faster than most people realize, and by then, no one will be able to stop it. Let's look at the evidence. The world we once knew is changing before our eyes. Nations are no longer operating independently. They're merging into alliances, trading blocs, and military coalitions. Some of these global alliances may very well be the foundation for the 10 kings Daniel and John foresaw. But are they forming naturally? Or is someone orchestrating their rise? And if someone is, what's their ultimate goal? If there's one alliance that scholars and researchers have long watched as a potential fulfillment of the 10 nations prophecy, it's the European Union. But could this alliance be the missing key to understanding everything? For decades, many have speculated that the final world empire described in Daniel 7 and Revelation 17 could rise from the very place where the ancient Roman Empire once ruled. And if that's the case, Europe isn't just another global power. It could be the foundation of the prophesied 10 kings. And the evidence for this is more compelling than most people would ever expect. Yet somehow, most people aren't even paying attention. The European Union began as an economic partnership after World War II, with the goal of ensuring that Europe would never again be torn apart by war. But what started as a small trade agreement quickly grew into a powerful political and economic superstate, controlling policies for 27 nations. And here's where it gets interesting. The EU has been restructuring itself, pushing for a smaller, more centralized leadership. But who is truly behind this restructuring? For years, leaders have debated whether the EU should be streamlined into a core group of 10 nations. And guess what? That idea is still on the table today. Now, if you think this 10-nation theory is far-fetched, you may be surprised to learn that a 10-nation military alliance has already existed within Europe. It was called the Western European Union, WEU, and it was a defense organization that lasted from 1954 to 2011. And guess how many nations it had? Exactly 10. For years, prophecy watchers pointed to the WEU, believing it could be the foundation of the 10 kings. But in 2011, it was dissolved. Or was it? Because history has a way of hiding things in plain sight. What if instead of disappearing, its influence only became stronger? And if that's true, then the groundwork has already been laid. Some argue that rather than disappearing, the power of the WEU was quietly absorbed into the EU itself. And that brings us to today, where European leaders are once again pushing for a smaller, more powerful coalition at the center of the EU. Right now, the European Union is at a crossroads. With political instability, economic challenges, and rising global threats, some leaders are demanding major changes. French president and other top EU officials have repeatedly suggested that the EU must streamline leadership, and some believe that could mean restructuring into 10 primary nations or regions. Could they be unknowingly or deliberately shaping the very structure that prophecy foretold? And if it's deliberate, who is really pulling the strings? In fact, some proposals have already been drafted suggesting that the EU move toward a 10-region model. Could this be the exact structure that Daniel and Revelation predicted? And if so, we may be closer to the end than we ever imagined, and closer than most people are willing to accept. Could we be watching the final form of the Roman Empire taking shape before our eyes? And if so, then history is repeating itself in the most dangerous way possible. Now, let's connect some dots. The Bible's prophecy about the 10 kings comes from Daniel's vision of the 4 great empires: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The final kingdom, the one with 10 horns, comes from Rome. But what if that empire never really ended, and is now rising once again? If it never truly fell, then its return was inevitable. And today, we see that the European Union covers much of the same territory that the Roman Empire once ruled. This has led many to believe that the EU is the prophesied revived Roman Empire, the one that will ultimately hand power to the final world ruler. And here's where it gets even more eerie. Because what we're about to reveal changes everything. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence that the 10 nations could already be forming is hidden in plain sight, within the structure of the United Nations itself. The idea of dividing the world into 10 regions is not just a theory, it is a documented fact. In the past, the United Nations has outlined a plan that splits the entire globe into 10 geopolitical and economic regions. While the publicly stated reason for this division was for better coordination of global policies, many researchers and scholars have pointed out how eerily similar this structure is to the 10 Kings prophecy, found in the books of Daniel and Revelation. The United Nations was established after World War II with the goal of maintaining international peace and security. Over the decades, it has expanded into a powerful governing body that influences nearly every aspect of global affairs. As the world became more interconnected, the UN and its associated organizations developed a plan to streamline global governance. Part of that plan involved dividing the world into 10 regions, each with its own administrative leadership and economic framework. Some argue that these regional groupings were meant for economic and political coordination, but others see a much deeper and more prophetic significance. And if they're right, then we are living in the final moments before the shift. Could this be the early formation of the 10 kings prophesied in Daniel 7 verse 24 and Revelation 17:12? The Bible tells us that 10 rulers will arise in the final days, forming a unified structure before ultimately handing their power to the beast. And once that happens, the world will never go back to the way it was before. What is most concerning is how global leaders today are openly discussing the need for a stronger, more centralized world government. And the world is eagerly walking right into it. But will anyone realize the danger before it's too late? One of the most important discussions happening among world leaders today is how to streamline international decision-making. The argument is that global crises, from pandemics to economic collapses, are too complex for individual nations to handle. Instead, many leaders are proposing that regional governments be strengthened, each controlling a major portion of the world. This means instead of nearly 200 independent nations, the world could be governed by a small group of 10 powerful leaders. And if that happens, global control will be easier than ever before. Once that door is open, there may be no way to close it again. This is exactly what we see in the prophecy of the 10 kings. But there's one final twist. one that will change everything we thought we knew about this prophecy. Daniel and Revelation describe a world where 10 rulers rise, controlling vast territories before merging their power into one final system. So, are we looking at a temporary global strategy or the foundation of the final kingdom prophesied in the Bible? The answer to that question could change everything. Another disturbing trend to consider is how this regional control is becoming more structured, particularly in the areas of finance, trade, and digital governance. For example, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank have divided financial control across these 10 regions, each managed by a central authority. The push for a cashless society and global digital currencies also ties directly into this system. If you control the economy, you control the people. If you control the people, you control nations. And if you control nations, you control the world. The global elite are not hiding this agenda anymore. They want a world where 10 regions manage everything, from laws to finances to social policies. And all it takes is one major crisis to push this system into full control. And what if that crisis is already here? If the 10 Kings prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes, then we must ask ourselves, what happens next? When people think of a 10-nation coalition, they often focus on politics. But what if the 10 kings aren't politicians at all? What if they are military rulers, leading the most powerful armed forces on Earth? The rise of massive military alliances, like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and new defense pacts in the Middle East, suggest that nations are preparing for a future conflict on a global scale. Some scholars speculate that the final 10 kings could be military rulers, uniting during a time of war or great crisis. And when the time is right, they may give their power and authority to the beast. If that's true, then who is already in place, waiting for the right moment to act? Could we be seeing the early formation of this final kingdom? The evidence is growing stronger every day. If the 10 kings are truly forming in our time, then we must look beyond just military alliances and political power. The Bible is clear. Economic control will be at the heart of the final world system. Revelation 13:16-17 gives us a chilling warning. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark. This means that the final world empire will not only govern nations, it will control commerce itself. And today, we are watching a financial shift that could set the stage for this very system. The G10 is one of the most powerful financial alliances in history. These 10 nations dominate global banking, international trade, and monetary policy. But here's the key. They have the power to influence worldwide economies with just a few decisions. When the G10 central banks make a move, the entire global market feels it. Could this group, or an evolution of it, become the financial backbone of the prophesied 10 kings? Some believe that as the world descends into economic instability, these 10 nations will consolidate power. They will not just influence global finance, they will control it. And when the time is right, they could hand over their authority to a single world leader, just as Revelation 17:13 warns. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. One of the biggest economic shifts happening today is the move toward a global digital currency. Many of the world's most powerful financial institutions, including those connected to the G10, are actively developing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Unlike traditional money, CBDCs would allow governments to track, monitor, and regulate every financial transaction in real time. This isn't speculation. Nations are already rolling out digital currencies. China has introduced the digital yuan. The European Union is preparing for the digital euro. And in the United States, discussions about a digital dollar are intensifying. What happens when these systems are fully implemented? Will they merge into a single unified currency, controlled by a coalition of 10 economic leaders? If so, then the infrastructure for economic control is already being built, and it matches exactly what we were warned about in prophecy. The World Economic Forum, WEF, has openly called for a great reset, urging nations to rethink capitalism, banking, and governance. WEF founder Klaus Schwab has repeatedly stated that the future will be built by those who take bold action today. But the question is, who will be in charge of this new system? Many believe that the shift toward a centralized, controlled economy is paving the way for a system where financial transactions are regulated, monitored, and restricted based on compliance. Could this be the mechanism by which the 10 kings take financial control? The warnings are clear. A new financial order is coming. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, plays a key role in the shift toward economic centralization. They influence interest rates, national debt policies, and the structure of financial markets worldwide. Recently, the IMF has suggested that the world needs a single digital currency, a financial system that removes national sovereignty and places power in the hands of a centralized governing body. This is exactly what prophecy describes: a time when economic power is placed into the hands of a small group of rulers, leading to total control. Revelation warns us that a day is coming when no one will be able to buy or sell without submitting to a global system. But that kind of control does not appear overnight. It is built over time. With each new economic crisis, financial institutions push for more control, more surveillance, and more regulation. Many believe the final 10 kings will use economic policies to exert power over the population, whether through a cashless society, digital IDs, or restricted commerce. We are heading toward a world where economic independence will no longer exist. And when the world is desperate enough, a leader will rise to take full control. The infrastructure is already being prepared. Throughout history, wars have shaped the course of nations. But never before have we seen a time like this, where conflicts erupt simultaneously across multiple regions, where world leaders stand at the edge of decisions that could reshape the future forever. Could we be witnessing the precursors to prophecy? The Bible speaks of a time when wars and rumors of wars will dominate the landscape before the rise of a final global order. Right now, the world is on fire, alliances are shifting, and the nations seem to be preparing for something massive. But what does this all mean? The Middle East has always been at the center of global tension, but today it feels different. The conflicts are deeper, the stakes are higher, and the world is watching with bated breath. We've seen the battle for Jerusalem, the ongoing clashes between Israel and surrounding nations, and the global powers weighing in, each side pushing toward an outcome that could ignite something far bigger. Isaiah 17:1 tells us, "Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap." Many have speculated, could this prophecy be nearing its fulfillment as conflicts rage near Damascus? Could we be witnessing the early stages of something far greater than just another regional dispute? The Bible is clear. The Middle East will play a critical role in the final world conflicts. And right now, it seems like everything is moving in that direction. While much of the world focuses on immediate conflicts, a longer and quieter battle is playing out in the Pacific, one that could have global consequences. China's growing military influence has reshaped international strategies, leading to rising tensions in the South China Sea and new alliances between Western and Asian nations. Meanwhile, nations like North Korea continue their relentless pursuit of nuclear weapons, raising serious concerns about what the future holds. Could this power struggle be leading to an eventual clash that forces nations into their prophesied roles in the final days? Revelation speaks of kings of the East, a reference that many believe points to the rising influence of these very nations. One thing is certain: the global order is shifting, and the balance of power is not stable. While the world watches the battles overseas, another war is being fought within nations that were once seen as unshakable. The Western world is more divided than ever, and with each crisis, the foundations of once great nations begin to crack. From economic turmoil to political corruption, from civil unrest to weakening alliances, the nations that once led the world now find themselves struggling to keep order within their own borders. And as these global powers weaken from the inside, other forces rise to take their place. Could this be the beginning of the end for the nations that once dominated the world stage? And if so, who is waiting to step into the vacuum of power left behind? It seems like every day, the world inches closer to an event that will change history. Military buildups, nuclear threats, economic collapse, political unrest. What happens when all of these reach a breaking point at the same time? Jesus warned in Matthew 24, 6-7, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." Could these very words be describing the days we're living in? Because if these wars and conflicts are just the beginning, what comes next? In every major historical turning point, a leader emerges, a voice that promises hope in the midst of chaos, a figure who claims to have the solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. But what if the next leader to rise isn't just another politician or global influencer? What if he is something much more? Something foretold in ancient prophecy. The Bible warns us that after the 10 kings take their positions, they will do something unprecedented. They will surrender their power, not to a democracy, not to a council, but to one man. Revelation 17 verses 12-13 says, "The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast." The rise of the 10 kings is only a stepping stone. Their rule is brief, just long enough to hand over everything to someone far more dangerous. Imagine the world is in crisis. Wars are breaking out, economies are collapsing, and fear is spreading like wildfire. Then a leader emerges. He speaks with authority. He promises peace, and he has the backing of the most powerful governments on earth. But there's something different about him, something unsettling. He's not just respected, he's worshipped. History has seen its fair share of powerful rulers. Some were conquerors, some were political geniuses, and others were ruthless dictators. But the leader that is coming, the one described in prophecy, is different. He doesn't just rule nations, he controls hearts and minds. Daniel 8, verses 23-25 tells us, "In the latter time, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy fearfully, and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. This isn't just another world leader. He is given power from beyond, and that power will deceive many. What makes this final leader so different? The world welcomes him. Unlike past dictators who seized power through force, this man will rise to power because people will want him to lead. They will beg for him to take control. How does this happen? Through fear and desperation. The book of Revelation makes it clear. He won't come with an army at first. He won't come through war. He will come through peace. Daniel 9 verse 27 tells us, "Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week." A covenant. A peace deal. Something that brings order to chaos. Imagine this. After years of division and war, one man steps forward with the ultimate solution. A peace agreement that ends conflict. A treaty that stabilizes economies. A new world system that promises security and prosperity for everyone. And the world will love him for it. But here's where it all changes. The Bible warns that this peace is an illusion, a trap. The moment he has complete control, everything shifts. Daniel 9 verse 27 continues, "But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate." Halfway through his reign, the mask comes off. The true nature of this leader is revealed. And the peace he promised? It was never real. At first, the changes seem small. New laws, more control. But then, something shocking happens. Worship is required. Revelation 13:16-17 tells us, "He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark." Now, it's no longer about leadership. It's about loyalty, and the price of disobedience, death. The moment this leader takes full power, there is no turning back. The prophecy of the final world leader will have come to pass, and for those who refuse to follow him, the consequences will be devastating. The signs are here. The 10 kings are preparing to rise. The world is shifting into a new order, and the stage is being set for the final events of prophecy. Jesus told us in Matthew 24:33, "So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors." We are living in the days where prophecy is coming to life. Are you watching? The 10 kings are rising. The world is changing. And Jesus is coming back. The only question left is, are you ready? Time is short. The signs are here. Are you prepared for what's coming?